Hey everyone, it's Tox from critshappen.com. Thanks for watching and welcome back. So we've got Critical Strike Episode 2, and I've got 3 games that could not be any more different. I have fish, I have zombies, and I have football. I don't know how much more of a spectrum I could get that varies in terms of themes. So let's jump right in. First thing we've got is Salmon Run. Salmon Run is a racing slash deck building game from Griffin Games. Now, Jesse, who is the designer, reached out to me on this, and I will be very straightforward, and I will tell you the same thing I told him. This doesn't excite me. When I think of gaming, and I think of playing games with my friends or strangers or anyone, salmon are not usually the first things that come to mind. So when I started to think about this and read about this and learn about this, I started to slowly get more into it. Now, Salmon Run is a 2 to 4 player game, ages 10 and up, about maybe 20 to 45 minutes, so it's really quick, which is really nice. Truth be told, I'm not a fan of racing games. I really don't feel that any racing game out there really does the thrill of racing justice. But the first thing I'd like to point out is this. It says 10 and up. If your kid can read, they'll like Salmon Run. This is a very easy game to learn. It's a very quick game to teach, and there's quite a bit that happens in the game that lets you come back to it more often than not. The first thing is that you have to understand you're a salmon at the bottom of a river, and you're going to be swimming upstream to try and be the first person to get to the spawning pool at the end of the map. And the nice thing about the map is it's completely customizable. It's all hexes, and there's different boards that you're going to be able to flip on either side, and you're going to have easy, medium, and hard boards. So you can make it as simple as you want if you're playing with younger kids. You can make it as hard as you want if you're playing with older people. But aside from just racing and trying to get uphill, it's how you race to get uphill. Well, I guess upstream, I shouldn't say uphill. To get upstream that really matters. You're going to be given a small deck of cards to start the game with. And they're going to allow you to move either forward or to the left or to the right, and you know, depending on the cards that you play. And you're only going to be allowed to play so many cards per turn before you get tired from fatigue. And if you ever get fatigued, there's actually a fatigue card you take and put that into your deck, which, as you can imagine, really just slows you down because you're tired. Now, on top of that, your opponents are going to be trying to get uphill as well. Now, you may think this is as simple as play the right cards and get uphill as fast as possible, but it's not that simple. See, aside from just being a salmon and swimming uphill and trying to beat your opponents, there's going to be bears and there's going to be eagles that are trying to capture you and slow you down and discard things from your hand and impact how you're playing. So just like a real salmon has to fight uphill and fight upstream to avoid obstacles, you're going to be doing the same thing here. The other thing is there's currents. On the map there's going to be things that will push you in certain directions. And sometimes you may even spin you around in circles, which is really unique and really interesting. But probably the best part about it is that from a deck building standpoint, there's much more strategy and much less luck. And what I mean by that is it uses a mechanic that I really like. Instead of using a deck building where you have an area of cards that you would draft from whatever the best available is, this actually has several separate decks, and depending on the space that you go over when you move on your turn on the river, that's going to determine what deck you can choose to take a card from. And there's no resources. Like, it's not like you have to have a certain number of cards to go get this or anything like that. It's, I've crossed over this spot, I can now go get a card from that deck. So aside from racing to get upstream and get to the spawning pool, there's going to be points in the game where you are actually racing against your opponent to get over certain spots first to get the card that you want that's best from that specific deck. And there are going to be things that will allow you, you know, to double swim spaces, being able to jump, maybe get more eagles or more bear to be able to play and impact your opponents. There's a lot of different things that happen. You can make a speed deck, you can make an aggressive deck, you can make a defensive deck. I mean, there's a lot of nice customization with that. But the 2 biggest things that I really walked away from playing Salmon Run were with is this. The first is that is extremely accessible to everyone and anyone. Didn't matter if we played with kids, with family, with strangers, it was extremely easy to teach and pick up. And the second part of that is probably the more important fact that I took away from playing Salmon Run. This is a great game to introduce people who don't play deck building to deck building. When you sit down and try to teach someone Dominion, it can get really hard if they've never played tabletop style board games or designer board games before. This is a game that does a really good job of easing somebody into a deck building type strategy, and I really like that. Now, from a deck building fan's point of view, there is not as much depth as I would like to see from deck building to really bring me back in an effort to play a deck building game over and over again like this. But what it does really, really well, and I was really surprised by that. Overall, I'm going to give Salmon Run a hit. I think that it is a very fun, very well designed, very engaging game that will bring many, many hours of enjoyment for you and your family, or you and your friends. The only challenge that it still faces, quite frankly, is its theme. While it is good and while it drips with theme, it is not the first thing that people immediately jump to, even after we've shown them how to play it. The challenge that Salmon Run has is it usually in our group will only get to the table once in a night. The good thing is that once is fun. The challenge is that once it's over, people usually want a little more complex of a deck building strategy, or they want to move on to a different theme and something like that. But for what it is, I was extremely surprised and pleasantly happy with Salmon Run. So I would recommend it, I would give it a hit, and I hope that if you haven't played it yet, you would take a second to at least check it out. Because again, while at first pass I saw it and said, "Meh," I actually am very happy that I dug into this and very happy that I had a chance to play it. Next up on the list is Zombies, and that's If I'm Going Down from Van Ryder Games. Now, this is dubbed as a dying card game, which is very apropos for two reasons. Number one, you're going to die. Number two, I just don't know what else to classify it as. So, If I'm Going Down is for ages 14 and up, and I highly recommend to stick to that. The artwork is a little gruesome and sometimes gory, could kind of freak out some little kids, so while I'm not going to parent you and to tell you how to parent, leave it up to you, but I would not introduce it to my children. I'll leave it at that. It's 1 to 2 players, cooperative if you play 2 players, and says about 30 to 60 minutes, although the reality we found that games could take between 20 to 30 minutes. So how does this work? Well, the concept is you're going to die. The concept is if you put yourself in a B movie with a bunch of zombies, you're stuck in an area, some place maybe in a shack or in a stadium or something, and there's all these zombies coming after you. And sooner or later you're going to get bit or scratched, or sooner or later you're going to turn into a zombie and die. So there's 2 main decks inside the game. Without getting into too much of the rules, you have a fate deck, which is going to be comprised of equipment and objects and events and different things that are going to happen throughout the game and different things you're going to use throughout the game. And then a deck of zombies. And depending on the setup or the story that you choose, that one big deck is then distributed into multiple different smaller decks, and that's like spawning points for the zombies. And each card length is a space. They're going to move closer to you. That's going to help you determine range when you're attacking different things. And the object is to get as many points as possible, and each zombie has points on them. Now, this may sound really simple. Go pick up a shotgun and shoot the zombie worth the most points. Could be. 2 things around this. The first is its very, very unique use of inventory. It's all cards, like I mentioned, but there's going to be cards that represent your hands, there's going to be cards that represent your body, and there's going to be cards that represent the area around you. This is not a game like Zombicide where you're going to be moving all over a board. You're stuck in one spot, you're firing away and trying to mow down as many zombies as possible. But while you would think, again, pick up a shotgun and shoot the one with the most points, it's not always that easy, because you're not always going to have a shotgun. You're going to have to search inside the fate deck. The interesting thing about the fate deck is that there are a lot of different things from an equipment standpoint, which really dripped with theme once again, which I thought was really cool. Anyone who walks away from If I'm Going Down that tells me, nah, I just didn't feel like I was playing a zombie game, they may be undead, because it feels like you're playing a zombie game. There's a lot of unique things too. The inventory system is really cool because it doesn't use that imaginary bag of holding that you can carry a shotgun, a machete, a flamethrower, a chainsaw, and all these different things at once. there are different amounts of uses that you can use an item. So you may pick up a gun, but it may only have 2 bullets in it. Or you may have a gas cylinder, like you know, something you would use for like a gas barbecue grill, and it's sitting out in the middle of the environment, and you could like prime it and then shoot it and explode it and like kill different things. In addition to all that, your characters are going to have abilities that will help you with equipment and different things like that as well. More on that one in a second too. The problem with the Fate deck is Fate is a fickle thing, and while sometimes it is very good to you, it is also sometimes very bad to you. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. Now the zombies, let's talk about the zombies for a second. The zombies that will come out of these spawn points and come at you, they're worth different points. They have different abilities. They are some that are more fast, some that are work better with others, some that are standard, and some that could potentially be somebody you had a relationship with that you cared for, or some that you had a relationship with that you didn't care for. And that's going to impact decisions. When there's people out there that you care about, you can't necessarily attack them immediately, even though they may net you the most points. When there's people out that you may not have liked, you may have to attack them first, and they may not net you the most points. And as you can imagine, on your turn, you only have so many actions, and then the zombies are going to move and come closer towards you, or you and your partner. And the challenge in there lies is when things fail. And here's what happens. So when you make an attack, you use that Fate deck. Aside from being events and objects and things like that, there are symbols on the Fate deck cards, and you'll use those symbols to potentially resolve what's going to happen in the attack. And you could potentially miss, which means you could potentially not end up wasting an action, basically. And if you waste too many actions, then in come the zombies and you get overrun. And that was really the detractor that I found inside of If I'm Going Down. While there are a lot of really, really good things going for it, there is a lot of luck involved with the game. We had games where we just absolutely mowed down our opposition, and we had games where we just got completely overrun. So while I really like the multitude of different things inside of that Fate deck, there are a lot of no events or cards that will cause you to miss or screw up your attacks, and that can really take away from it. Now, some of the really good things that are really cool, aside from the inventory system. This game, literally 3 to 4 of these games in the time it takes to play one game of Zombicide or Last Night on Earth. I like zombies. I really do like zombie games. I think they're a lot of fun. It's a genre that always poses just a lot of tongue-in-cheek type humor, or tongue falling out of cheek type humor, whatever you want to call it. But the problem is they take so long, and they're so big, and there's so much going on with them. And If I'm Going Down really offers you a really quicker way to get in that fix. Now, I'm going to give it a hit, but I'm going to give it a hit with a caveat. If you're an average general board gamer, it would probably be a low hit because of the high amount of luck that's involved with the game. Also, you really have to like zombies, which flips me to the other side of that hit. If you're a zombie fan, this is a really fun game and something that will scratch that itch very, very well. The one thing it will leave, whether you are a low hit, high hit, non-zombie, high zombie fan, wherever you fall in this scale that I just talked about, it's going to leave you wanting more. There's a lot of standard zombies in the game, and there's a lot of times after you start to see, especially in the stories, which are really, really good, more on that in a sec, but once you get into the game and you start seeing all the things that happen, you realize this is a good first kind of starting point, and you really, really want more, and you want to build on a lot of the mechanics that are in the game. Now, stories. There's setups, and then there's scenario or stories that you can put together. If you get this game, I highly recommend the stories. They add a nice little role-playing element, a little bit more deeper connection to the gameplay. I thought was really, really well done. And that's something that I also should really point out. The rule books for If I'm Going Down, for both the setup and rules, and then the stories as well, extremely well done and well written. In fact, so good they have QR codes to videos that will teach you about that portion of the rule book that you're reading. I thought that was phenomenal. Really, really well done. So we started with fish and we had a hit, and then we went to zombies and we had a hit. What's last? So last on our list is Fantasy Flight's Blood Bowl Team Manager the card game, the Sudden Death expansion. Wow, that's a lot. That's a mouthful. I actually was a little concerned about reviewing this, and here's why. The back of this has a nice little red button, and it says, Blood Bowl Team Manager, the card game, required to play. So, while I'm not a big fan of reviewing things that require you to go get something else to enjoy how good this is an exception. So, I'm not going to get into the original Blood Bowl Team Manager, the card game, because we reviewed that last year and did a playthrough on that. We'll put links in the video to that so you can check it out. It is a fun game. We gave it a crit. It's an absolutely unique universe, very fun. Whether or not you've played the Blood Bowl miniatures game, the Blood Bowl Team Manager card game can really appeal to you. It scratches a deck building itch. It scratches that fantasy Warhammer kind of crazy, wild universe. But the whole concept behind Blood Bowl is crazy, right? I mean, it's a spiked football that a dwarf or an undead or an elf or somebody like that can fight with. So it's crazy. This worried me. And worried is the best word I can use. I was really worried when I first heard about the expansion. I am kind of a purist. I like games that don't have to build on itself. I like games that are great just in and of itself. Now that said, I like expansions. We just got done talking about If I'm Going Down and how it leaves you wanting more. A good game will do that. It will leave you wanting more from it and wanting to play more different things with it. The problem becomes this. Not every game can be expanded on and expanded upon well. And when I first heard about the expansion for this, I got worried about one major concern. Were the 3 teams that you get inside of Sudden Death going to be more powerful or more appealing to play than the original set? I thought the original set was really well balanced. So there's a lot of things that are in Sudden Death, like if or either or abilities. You have some cards that have a slash on them, and they're going to have what's called skill sets. And it's not a case if there's multiples on either side that you get to choose one of this and one of this, but it's more you choose either the left or either the right, and you pick one of those two when your player gets committed to a highlight to resolve their abilities. I thought that was really cool, but I also thought, wow, it's going to open up a lot of options. Is that potentially going to make some of these guys more powerful? The other thing was when I heard about regeneration and downed abilities. Now, there's 3 new races or 3 new teams in this set, all from their own unique division. And so star players and freebooters are going to come to them different than the ones that go to the original 2 divisions in Blood Bowl Team Manager, the card game. But this also has the option that some players, when they are down and they're turned clockwise, will have downed abilities that need to be resolved the minute they are downed. One of those abilities is regeneration, which potentially with rolling dice could allow you to stand a player back up. Now, thematically, while that works with the teams that it's connected to, I was worried because, again, I'm like, whoa, that could be really powerful depending on how this is all set up. I'm very, very happy to say that this is an extremely well-balanced, well-put-together expansion. We've played multiple games with the original set of players against this new set of players, and they are very, very well balanced. The either-or option skill sets, the downed abilities, while they are great, they are very fun and provide a lot more strategic depth when building up your decks as you choose star players. It is really well balanced. That there is never a case that I felt like, wow, that guy is so powerful, he's never going to be able to. I mean, there's nothing that jumped out as broken in the multitude of games that we played, and I was really, really happy about that. The other thing, too, is there are more manager upgrade and team upgrade cards, which are great and add a lot of new elements to the game. I don't want to spoil any of them, but they do add some really nice flair to the game. There's 2 rules that I thought were added were really, really well done. The first, in keeping in the tongue-in-cheek theme of Blood Bowl, is television contract tokens. So Cabal Vision is going to televise some of the highlights, some of the games that you're going to be playing at. And if you win them, you could win contract tokens. And very much like cheating tokens, they're going to stay face down. But these contract tokens will actually stay face down to the end of the game, not till the end of that round. And what's going to happen is at the end of the game, you're going to flip them over, and some of them will provide you with more fans, which is, as you know, the ultimate way to win this game is to be the person with the most fans. So you're going to want to play your guys at those for the potential to get more fans, but it is a little bit of a gamble as to if you're going to get a lot more or a little more and how to balance that out. I thought that was a really nice addition. The other thing which I think is really, really fun and very flexible is an optional rule, which is an enchanted ball rule. And the enchanted ball basically is just like a regular football, but instead of just providing star power, could potentially provide you with fans or abilities and different things that are going to impact the game. And the reason I thought it was really well done is because it's an optional rule and not a mandatory rule. You can make all the highlights have an enchanted ball, or you can do what we really like to do, which is mix all of the balls up into one bag and pull them out one by one and put them down on the highlights. There is a little bit of a risk in that you could potentially pull them out of the bag on the wrong side and see the other side of the enchanted ball that you're not supposed to see. But it is a really neat and interesting way to do it. And the other way we've also done it without getting into too much house rules is separated all the tokens out and then rolled a die. And on an even, you take a regular ball. On an odd, you take an enchanted ball and do things like that. But it's a great optional rule, and I thought it added enough. So the really nice thing about Blood Bowl Team Manager Sudden Death's expansion is that it takes everything really good about the original Team Manager card game and elevates it and builds on it and does it really very well balanced in a very fun fashion and adds 3 all new teams with their own flair and their own abilities that really, really make it fun. If you enjoy Blood Bowl Team Manager the card game, you're going to absolutely love the expansion. We're going to give it a crit because it is both great, or it's all 3, great components, great artwork, great gameplay, and just builds upon the already good gameplay and adds some new things that are really, really fun and really, really well done in terms of strategic thinking and how you're going to choose star players and where you're going to place your players from a highlight perspective to gamble on getting those contracts or not. And from an engagement standpoint, just provides hours of just countless jokes and fun events that are happening throughout the game, aside from the engaging gameplay between players. So, wrapping up our Critical Strike Episode 2, the fish in Salmon Run get a hit. The zombies in If I'm Going Down get a hit. And the 3 new teams and all the additional elements for Blood Bowl Team Manager the card game in the Sudden Death expansion get a crit. To end with, I'd like to take a second and I'd like to thank Jesse from Salmon Run and AJ from If I'm Going Down. They actually provided copies of their games for us to review for you. And then the Fantasy Flight game was just out of our own pocket, as most of the games are around here lately. But that said, we definitely like to thank them, appreciate everyone engaging with us on this, and let us know what you think. Take time to let us know if you've played any of these games, what you think about them below in the YouTube comments. Of course, you can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Google Plus by searching Crits Happen, or at our homepage at critshappen.com. But until we see you next time, we hope you have fun swimming upstream, shooting zombies, and getting all the fans you can in the Blood Bowl universe. Thanks so much for watching. Keep rolling those dice, and we hope they're all crits.